Welcome to Guerrilla Discipleship. My name's Kevin Baker. I'm your host, and I'm glad to be with you for the last of our series on disciple making tools. And what basically we're talking about in this last kind of summation is I wonder if this is the beginning or the end for you. So, in other words, is this where you just say, "Gosh, I'm glad that series is over. I'm glad that we're not talking about tools anymore. I have no intention of ever putting them into practice, or I'm not ready to put them into practice." And so, this is in a sense, well, it's just the end for you. Or is this now actually the beginning? Are you saying, "I'm going to take a leap into a place that I feel so uncomfortable with. I'm going to begin to practice spiritual conversations, prayer calendaring, or praying with other people, inviting my friends and relationships at work and so forth into discovery." Maybe you're beginning, and it doesn't matter how small you begin with it. What matters is that you begin. And I want to just give you a little bit of guidance because as we enter into practices that feel this level of intimidating, I think the research has shown that most people in church know instinctively because we've heard it that we have good news. God loves us. And we've been transformed. We've been affected by God's presence in our lives, and we want other people to experience that. But there are a lot of forces that push against us, our willingness to get into those conversations or to be used of God in this way. We have a whole culture that has told us over and over again, sometimes in the church, but certainly outside of the church, that this is all private. We should not be talking about religion, and that we should keep our own desires to ourselves. We've been told that it's wrong to try to evangelize or to convert people from one religion to the next. We've been told how horrible that is on multiple levels, and we all feel, well, we feel a little bit like that, right? We feel like, I don't want to be offensive. I don't know that I feel confident. And so there are lots of reasons. I just want you to hear me say there are a lot of reasons that all of us are very reluctant to begin to become and all engaged with making disciples, of being used by God to share his truth and love and the joy of knowing him with other people. So as you enter into this beginning, and I'm so grateful that you're willing to begin. As you enter into this beginning, I want to invite you to do three things, or to remember three things. First of all, give yourself grace. Hey, you've never done this before. You remember, if you're a parent, remember what it was like when your toddler took their first step. You were waiting for their beginning, right? You were wanting them. It was a milestone that you wanted to see them through. And of course, it was more comfortable for them to just keep crawling, but you wanted them to get to the point where they would take that step. It was a celebration. That's how I feel about the step that some of you are taking today to say, "I'm going to begin." But remember how it was, right? They fell. They started to take a step and they toppled over, or they took one step and they fell flat on their face. And they went back to crawling for a little bit before they were ready to take another step. So give yourself grace. You're going to fall. You're going to fail. You're going to not get it right. You're going to be, by the way, you're going to be your worst critic. I want you to think about this. As you take these steps of obedience and being open, perhaps when the next time you're at a restaurant and somebody comes to serve you and you just say to your waitress or waiter, "Hey, is there anything I could pray for you about?" Um, you don't know how it's going to go. They may be busy, they may be rushed, they may be caught off guard, and they may not give you the answer. It may not be the sweetest little experience that you hoped it was going to be the very first time. Maybe you're going to feel awkward about it. Give yourself grace and remember, how is your Father in heaven looking at you? Is he going, "Oh my gosh, they were just miserable failures"? Or is he saying, "I'm so excited that my son, my daughter is beginning to walk in the way that I've been training them to walk, the way that I created them to walk as members of my kingdom"? So give yourself grace, quiet that critic that self-condemnation, that judgment of yourself. Just quiet it down. The second thing I want to encourage you to do is be patient with yourself. It's gonna take some time practicing this to begin to feel comfortable. Again, your toddler starts walking. They walk a little, they crawl, they go back to crawling. Um, because, well, it's easier to crawl at first before you get your balance and your skill at walking. So be patient. Be patient with the failures, or at least what you think are failures. Be patient with yourself that you're not getting it as quickly. And don't compare yourself to people who have been maybe praying out loud or having spiritual conversations with people for years. You're a beginner. We all have been beginners. We all need to begin, and we all need to be patient as we grow. I think you're going to find, if you'll just be patient with yourself, that this becomes a lifestyle without all the fear, all the critique, very quickly. And pay attention with what you're sensing in yourself, and talk about this with others in your church, in your small group. Talk about what you're experiencing. Invite them to talk about what they've done and what they've experienced. You might find yourself one of the few people in your circle that actually is beginning. You might realize, oh my gosh, at least I'm beginning. And so many of my friends and the people I sit with at church or in my small group are still, they're just too afraid to even begin. So I want you to be gracious with yourself. Give yourself grace. I want you to be patient with yourself. And then the third thing, I want you to learn how to hear the applause of heaven. What we need more than anything else is to be able to hear our Father's voice. Jesus was constantly assaulted by lots of voices, religious voices and questions, and he was being tested and challenged. He resorted back to hearing his Father's voice. That's why he prayed so much of his life. He wanted to hear the affirmation of his Father. Jesus himself said at times, I only do what I see my Father doing. I only do what my Father tells me to do. Our biggest cheerleader is our Father in heaven. And we need to learn how to hear his voice of affirmation. You have four voices in your head probably at any time. You've got the voice of the world. You've got the voice of your own flesh, your own fears, your own anxieties. You've got the voice of the enemy, discouraging you and distracting you and condemning you, telling you you're not worthy to be a disciple maker. Who do you think you are? Those voices are raging, but they get to be silenced by the voice of your Father, who says, pay no attention to those voices. I am pleased with you. Think about this. Jesus was God in the flesh. And yet his Father, when he spoke about him, said, this is my Son in whom I'm well pleased. That's what we need. If the Son of God needed that affirmation, if the Son of God received that affirmation, then remember, that's what our Father is saying about us. This is my daughter in whom I'm well pleased. Have you seen how she is beginning to obey me and spread the good news of my love to others in her circle, in her family, with her spouse, with her friends and coworkers? Hear that applause. And if you need help hearing that applause, there are two places. Go back to the scriptures. Look at what God applauds and look at your life and say, wow, he seems to applaud. Look at what Jesus applauded with his disciples. Sometimes he was frustrated with them, but he never gave up on them, and he applauded even their simple steps of obedience, even their honest, oh my goodness, Jesus, I don't know quite what I'm doing. He never condemned. He just applauded and said, let's move forward. The other help I think we have in hearing the applause of our Father in heaven are other believers, maybe some who are a little bit more mature than we are. Ask someone, hey, what do you think that God's feeling about this? What's your thought about how does God deal with these mistakes I'm making as I'm trying to obey him, or as I'm trying to be a disciple maker now in the realm of my life here, and give them examples and let them trust them enough, if they're mature believers in Jesus, trust their voice enough to hear that their father is speaking to you. Your father is speaking to you through your brothers and sisters in Christ who are, I would hope, going to say, oh my goodness, are you kidding? The Father is so blessed by your simple act of obedience and trust, even when you are confused or don't. He's not looking for perfection. The Father is not looking for perfection. He's looking for the journey and the adventure together of obedience, of being useful to Him, of trusting Him. And so I hope the applause of heaven is something that you begin to learn how to listen to in every aspect of your relationships and every aspect of your living, because we need that applause. We need to hear the affirmations of our Father, and He's giving them so often to us. Too often we've seen the Father, our Father in heaven, as the critic, as the judge, as the one we're never living up to His standards enough. But that's not the God of the Scriptures, if you'll look closely. The God of the Scriptures is a God of affirmation, of mercy, and of grace, of love, and of gratitude for who we are, and that we care enough to even want to serve with Him and serve Him. So thank you so much for being a part of Guerrilla Discipleship. And by the way, thank you so much for being a part of this series on the Disciple Makers Toolkit. We want to see you begin. And you know what? If you're sitting here going, I haven't begun, I'm afraid to begin, I just know me, I won't begin. Can I just tell you this? You can always begin at any time. Until you take your final breath, there's always an opportunity. Jesus said, as long as it's called today. So if you don't begin today, if you haven't started already, well, now's the time. Thanks so much. If there's questions that you have for me, kbaker@oakdale.church, or you can put them in the comments below. Look forward to seeing you next week. We're going to begin to talk a little bit more about community, because as disciple makers, we don't do this alone. Jesus never sent us out alone, right? He sent us out 2 by 2. And so we're going to talk about the way that God has formed us to do this as a team. Bless you. We'll see you next week. Thanks for being a part of Guerrilla Discipleship.